All right, welcome in Fourth String Podcast. We notice today it's just me. I didn't even tell Ben I was recording today. If Ben is watching and he wants to hop on, that is totally fine. I kind of did this a little bit intentionally. The reason I did this intentionally is because I want this to specifically be about remembering Mike Leach, which we'll get to in a second. But if you guys know our usual banner between me and Ben, oftentimes I think sometimes I can come across as the just kind of dominant in terms of like kind of taking command of the show a little bit, which is fine when we're doing our typical podcast. But anyways, if Ben would like to say what he wants to say about Mike Leach, I'm going to give him an opportunity to kind of do his own podcast under this and everything. We give him access to StreamYard and everything he needs to do that. But really, just wanted to kind of put this out there. And by the way, it was like last minute. So I'm trying to plan this too. It was a little bit impossible as well. But, I really wrestled putting anything out there, doing any sort of broadcast on this, just simply because so many people have written articles, have done podcasts, done shows, talked about Mike Leach, all sorts of stuff. And it's a really just been kind of thinking like all day, like, what am I going to say that hasn't already been said? What could I possibly have to bring to the discussion? And I mean, honestly, if I'm doing it last minute, if it's not being, marketed or whatever, is anybody really even going to listen to it? And, the reality to all of that is, Mike Leach, I think it was left such an impactful mark on the game that, he deserves as many podcasts and articles and everything else talking about him and the legacy he left behind. I mean, it's just really that substantial. And so whether or not I have anything else to offer, I mean, maybe I don't, but, I think Mike Leach and what he did for the game of college football, he's worthy of every podcast and article and anything else that gets put out there. So I don't think there's going to be enough, honestly. And I was having this discussion with somebody today. We're having a happy hour at work, and one of the realtors I work with, we were talking a little bit, and we were talking about Mike Leach, and I just kind of, as we were talking, he said, there's some people you don't understand the legacy that they've created until they're gone, which is just, it's so true. But it's such a shame too that we can't embrace a person's legacy and what they are and who they are, until they've already left us, and it's almost kind of like too late. But I do think, you look at all the outpouring of messages and tweets and articles, and I mean, I swear, like, last night, like, I literally didn't fall asleep until midnight because I'm literally just sitting there perusing article after article and story after story. All of these people have a different memory of Mike Leach, of something ridiculous he's done or a weird conversation he's had or whatever. And they're all different, by the way. Like, you can literally spend hours on Twitter and read hundreds of different stories about all these different memories people have of him, which is just, it's incredible to see and to hear all of that. And so it was, I look at Mike Leach and I just see like, okay, maybe the wins and the losses that he was responsible for, that may not be the most impressive resume, but what his resume is so much more impressive than so many other coaches, simply because of the legacy he left behind. I mean, how do you explain a coach who impacted the game, the X's and O's portion of the game, with the same level that Chip Kelly had? Like, I mean, Chip Kelly's offense, we're gonna see this offense in the game for a really long time. It's still there. People still run no huddle, right? Mike Leach brought the air raid offense to college football, and it's impacted the NFL. It's impacted high school ball. It's impacted, Sandlot. It's all over college football. He's had as big of an impact on the X's and O's of the sport as anybody else. But not just that, though. He's also impacted players the same way that Bobby Bowden has. I mean, how many former players, Mississippi State, Texas Tech, Oklahoma players, Washington State players have come out in support and have talked about how he's impacted their game, impacted their lives, impacted their careers, and also too the local like media I mean, a lot of these coaches are notorious for getting ugly with the media. I mean, how many press conferences, and I love Nick Saban, but how many press conferences do we see with Nick Saban where he's sassy with the media, writing them off, getting into fights with them, getting into pissing matches with them? I mean, it's constant, right? Like that's Nick Saban. We see it with Jim Harbaugh, but you look at Mike Leach, and he's literally calling reporters at like 11:30 at night and helping them do their job better. He has nothing to gain from that. Like it's incredible. And that makes me think so much of like Bobby Bowden, who just left this impactful legacy on the game and was just beloved by everybody that was around him. But then, too, the way he impacted and embraced every community he was in. Very similar to what PJ Fleck has done at Minnesota and did at I believe he was at Central Michigan before, right? And we've seen these coaches come across, and Mike Leach is just all in on the community he's been a part of. And I mean, he's been all over the place. He's been in the South at Texas Tech. He was in the Pacific Northwest at Washington State. Now he's in the Southeast at Mississippi State. And I saw this picture earlier on Twitter of him like in a Hawaiian shirt and cargo shorts and at some Mississippi local barbecue joint. And he apparently had like a list of like all the best barbecue joints in Mississippi. I mean, he is, the sport is so much about coaches always looking to get to like the next level. They'll use coaches as stepping stone or use schools as stepping stones. And I know we've talked a lot about on this podcast about Hugh Freeze using Liberty to go to Auburn, and ultimately, like, I mean, you don't blame them. I mean, that's just part of the sport, right? But at the same token, that is so commonplace in the sport, and Mike Leach really didn't do it. Mike Leach was the one guy that, for the years he was at Washington State, for the years he was at Texas Tech, and for the years he was at Mississippi State, he just completely embraced where he was while he was there. He wasn't constantly on the phone with his agent trying to find the next best program and move up to the biggest school that he could. He wasn't trying to do that. He was literally just about where he was when he was there and just content with that. And I have so much admiration for that because I think so many people, and I've been guilty of it too, in our regular jobs and what we do, day to day, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., whatever your typical schedule is. How many of us are trying to get promoted, look for the next best thing? Me, it's looking for, a bigger income, whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, I think that's pretty natural. Everybody wants to be aspirational, but none of us, I think we're all guilty of not taking enough time and really enjoying where we are right now in the process. And Mike Leach, if you look at everywhere he's been, I mean, he has been totally all in when he was there. And it's crazy. Like he's one of these guys like I wish I would have gotten to beat. But then my other thought on this too is I think it speaks to why college football is so great. The NFL is pretty much 32 teams, and you watch the sport for the players, and you watch the sport because you're in awe, right? College football, I think everybody watches because there's some level of connection. And this is why I've never like pushed back on people rooting for multiple schools because I think people can feel connected to multiple schools for various reasons. For instance, I've got a connection to Duke. I've of course got a connection to Liberty. I went there. I've got a connection to South Carolina. My dad's family is from there. Like I've got connections to all sorts of places. It's okay to root for those places, right? It's okay. And when I look at Mike Leach, I just feel like he was one of the people that made the sport so special. You watched for the uniqueness of these coaches, right? Like we all love watching Jim Harbaugh. He's so unique and quirky and he's just fun. And Mike Leach, I mean, we loved watching Mike Leach. Like you'd get the weird press conferences. There's that video that I think has made its rounds on the internet from just literally a couple months ago of him folding up the chairs of his receivers on the sidelines, like they had just come over from a really bad drive, and rather than letting them sit down, he goes over, gets all the chairs, folds up, and just tosses them on the ground. And it's just you watch this sport because I think you feel this connection to these coaches, and you appreciate the quirkiness and the weirdness of it. And he was certainly the epitome of all of that. I mean, just quirky and weird and fun. And anyways, it's a shame that I mean, you never want anybody to leave, but it's a shame that we've lost such a great coach. And I've always appreciated Mike Leach. Like Mike Leach has low key always been one of my favorite coaches. We've talked about him multiple times on this podcast and how much we appreciate him and, what he brings to the game. But I think even in that, I don't think any of us truly realized how big he was or how impactful he had been to the game until today, until we all got that ESPN or Fox Sports notification across our phone that he had passed. And, I just think looking at it like, we've got to find the people, the other Mike Leaches in this world, and make sure we appreciate them while we've got them. I mean, the guy was just literally I mean, an enigma. Like it just so complex, but not in a bad way by any means. He just had so many different layers to him, and so intelligent, so smart. And from a football perspective, by the way, I am always interested in coaches who take over programs that that weren't great and then really just completely turn them around. Like, if you go into Alabama after Nick Saban's been there and you have success there, well, like great, okay, you should have success there. But if you go into Alabama or if you go into like a team that's 2-10 and you get them turned around into a competitive team, well, that should be noteworthy. Like we should make note of that. Mike Leach went to a Texas Tech team that from 1977 through 2000 had literally 2 years where they finished the year in the top 10. And actually, from the time they started football in 1925, they only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years total that they had finished in the top 25. 7 years ever in the top 25. Mike Leach goes there in 2000 and was there from 2000 through 2009. And in those years, they had 5 years where they finished the year in the top 25. Again, previously, from the 30s up until when he went there in 2000, they only had 7 individual years where they finished in the top 25. He goes there and does it 5 times in 9 years. This was not a good program before he got there. And it's really not been a great program since he left there. I mean, it just hasn't been. Look at Washington State. Before Mike Leach went there, here were their previous 4 years before Mike Leach goes there. 2-11, 1-11, 2-10, 4-8. Wow, 4-8. And Mike Leach goes there, and by his 4th year there, they win 9 games. His last 5 years there, 9-4, 8-5, 9-4, 11-2, and finishing 10th in the country. Do we remember that in 2018? Washington State finished 10th in the country. Washington State has been at the bottom of the Pac-12 in similar fashions that I mean they've been to the Pac-12 what Duke has been to the ACC, what Northwestern has been to the Big Ten, and what Vanderbilt has been to the SEC. Like literally, that is what Washington State had been to the Pac-12 prior to Mike Leach getting there, and Mike Leach goes there and has instant success there. Then Mike Leach goes to Mississippi State and gets them flipped around too. They had gotten really, really bad. He takes them to 3 consecutive bowl appearances, 8-4 this year. They were I think they were turning themselves into a real SEC West power. They beat Ole Miss, who everybody loves, Lane Kiffin, And anyways, it's just incredible the success that he had built at Mississippi, or at all three programs that he was the head coach of. And not just that too. I mean, the guy was an incredible assistant coach as well. He had runs as an assistant at Oklahoma in 99, Kentucky in 97, 98, Valdosta State, Iowa Wesleyan. Um, I mean, think about this. He coached this program. I was looking at this the other day. He coached Pori Bears. Now, if you go and look that up. That is a school, or that is not even a school. It's a football team in Finland. They play American football in Finland. He coached them in 1989 for a year. I don't know any other college football coach that went to Finland to go coach football. I mean, I don't. That is ridiculous that he did that. I mean, just such a well traveled individual. Everybody's talking about his education. He had a bachelor's, had gotten a degree at Pepperdine, had gone to the United States Sports Academy. I think he got a master's there as well. I mean, just a super, super smart guy. And I think we all need to take a time at some point and just appreciate him for what he is, because we lost a giant today. We really did. He's been around the game forever, and for him to go, I guess he actually passed away last night, and so for him to go, this is a big deal. It's a very sad a day. It's a very big deal for this sport to lose somebody that is beloved. I think oftentimes we look at these coaches, whether this is right or wrong, I think we do. We look at them as father figures. We look at them as role models. We look forward to these press conferences. We look forward to these moments. I mean, Mike Leach every year was good for a quote every single year. And anyways, it really feels like we lost one of our own. So again, I know I didn't have anything extra to like bring to this discussion. You guys probably all heard this stuff before, but I had to put this out there because I just believe Mike Leach is deserving of everything, whether gets listened to by 2 million people, by 2 people, every article, whether it gets read by 2 million people or 2 people, like he just deserves all of this outpouring that we're seeing. I mean, the legacy that he has built and left behind, it is remarkable. I don't think we're ever going to see a coach quite like him ever again. Just don't think we're going to see it to impact the game the way he did that on the field, the way he did off the field, the way he did in the locker room, the way he did in the press conference. You're not going to see that. You're not going to see, like when people say one of one. Yes, that's absolutely it. And so anyways, I just want to take a few minutes here, put this out there. So Ben and I will be back at some point recording soon. There's a lot of bowl games to get to. At some point, we're certainly not going to do this now, but at some point, what is going to set in for Mississippi State is who will be their next head coach. What direction can you go with that? The other thing about this program, that should be discussed is they are also in the midst of interviewing athletic directors. And so anyways, I can't even fathom right now what that leadership is going through. You just lost your head coach. You're trying to figure out this athletic director thing. I think the last thing they want to do is get on the phone and go start looking for a head coach. Like I just I don't see how they would want to do that. But for these kids, for this staff, it's something they're going to have to do and going to have to do soon, because you just can't go into a year without that main man, at the helm. And so, anyways, I don't know what direction they're going to go with that. We've seen a lot of moves out there the past week or so. Purdue still has an opening as well. So, anyways, we'll see kind of what direction that goes. But man, oh man, lost a big one. Really did. Y'all have a good night. Fourth String Podcast.